Welcome back to Faith, Facts and Fire. I'm great and you're with
TY.
And today we're going to speak about the validity of the Bible, speaking about how valid the Bible is. Okay, cool. Where would you like to go from? What's your stance?
Cool. So why don't we start by first defining like what we mean by validity?
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So what would you say is what you mean by validity of the Bible? Like,
do you know what? You get up because I've got
official definitions.
Do you know that's what? Okay, you go and say your official definition first.
Of validity.
Yeah, and then I will relate that to the Bible.
Okay.
I think that makes the most sense. That way we know.
But so hold on. So you're saying your definition in terms of the Bible or in terms of the word itself?
In terms of the word itself, but then I want to see how it correlates to the Bible.
Okay, cool. So when I say validity, what I'm saying is how reliable or how reputable a source is.
Okay.
So if you think about going to trial or actually that's not even a good example. If you think about the validity of something, I'm thinking about how reliable is this thing? So a better example is if you've got two friends, and you know one of them kind of talks rubbish, and one of them like when they say something they mean what they say. You know that the one that talks rubbish, their validity is not very good. You're not really going to listen to what they're saying. But the one that's reliable, you say, he's a reliable source. So I kind of mean it in that way. Okay,
the validity. Okay, I hear that. If looking at the actual definition, I agree with what you're saying, by the way. So to qualify of well-being, accurately measuring what it claims to measure, whether in research, tests, or logic, how legally acceptable it is. So basically, kind of like you said. So just the world, how accurate something is.
Yeah, how accurate something is. Yeah.
Cool. Agreed. So before I share what I believe the validity of the Bible is as well, I think today, because you're coming from so what's the point the stance you're coming from then?
That it's not trustworthy.
Trustworthy. Cool. Because you're coming from a stance of saying it's not trustworthy, I want you to then create whatever test that we think. So if you were to think of me and you to speak right now, okay, cool. How are we gonna say that something is valid? How are we gonna say test the validity or something? We need to come up with a test, right? So I want you to come up with the test that the Bible is gonna be held to.
Okay, I like the way that you phrase that still.
Yeah, because then that way there, because do you see what I'm saying? That way there, you'll be able to, if it can hold up to your standard, then you know it's real. But from what I see in terms of the biblical validity, I wrote down the accuracy of translation from the original text. So this is how the test that I would look for to prove it. So the events, if the events are grounded in history or not, if the claims are coherent. If the messages have credibility based on evidence, and then lastly, is the Bible trustworthy in what it teaches? So I feel like those 5 pillars, in my opinion, is what I would use and see what the validity of the Bible is. I think we should definitely write down and whatever test it may be, how you know that it's accurate.
Okay,
do you get what I'm trying to say?
I like that.
Yeah, I wish I'd said we'd come up with a test first. Before, now a lot of the things I'm saying is like, this makes sense, and that's why I wanted it to be you coming up with a test. Reason being is that because you're the one who's opposing, you'll be able to if forget.
Well, we're both opposing.
No,
so
I feel
like the audience is a neutral party, you're trying to prove to them why it is valid. Yeah, and I'm trying to prove to them why it's not.
So from my stance, I do believe that the Bible has validity. I believe that the Bible is clearly rooted in what it says, and there's a strong basis for everything that is written within the Bible. So that's what I'm advocating.
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay, cool. So if you wanted to even forgetting the Bible for a second, let's say we wanted to do like a normal test. Let's say it's a piece of information, like something happened in the ends or whatever, how would we what test would we do and put this is reliable, this actually happened? Like what kind of things would you say?
Good. So I think the best way of doing it, how I was thinking beforehand, is if you think about law, and you think about trial or a case. Yeah. This is a scenario where there's incomplete information. Yeah. Okay. Most of the time, only the person on trial knows the exact truth. Everybody else doesn't know the full situation. Okay. But based on stuff like witnesses, based on the person's account.
So are we gonna? Can I write that down? Witnesses?
Yeah, you can write it down.
So witnesses, So it has to have witnesses. Okay, yeah.
But obviously this is in a metaphorical kind of way.
Yeah,
but I'm just trying to say a trial is a good example of a situation where two parties are trying to prove something.
Perfect.
The prosecution and defense are trying to prove whether someone's innocent or not. So that's basically what we're doing. We're kind of prosecution and defense.
Basically.
And the way that we'd go about in a trial is that we'd have to provide evidence, and the person themselves would have a say, but it wouldn't just be their say that would be used to conclude the case.
Yeah, of course. In me as a law student, what we do in law, you need to prove beyond reasonable doubt, is what they call it, that whatever you're saying is true or not. So in court, you need to prove beyond reasonable doubt whether this person committed a crime or not. If you cannot conclusively conduce to over reasonable doubt this person done X, Y, Z, 9 times out of 10 the person's going to go free, innit? So would you include that into the test as well? So you have I have to prove it to you beyond a reasonable doubt.
We have to prove it to them beyond a reasonable doubt. Because the only difference in this case is that we're both prosecutors in a way. We're both trying to. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
You get it? So they're the jury.
So you're the jury.
Yeah,
okay,
they're
cool.
the jury, and we both have to prove without a reasonable doubt.
Agreed.
Which is hard because it's theology. But
agreed.
we have to try it.
Agreed. And so you lot out there who's watching this, you lot in the comments will be the jury.
Yeah, they'll be the jury.
I do think as well, even though we're going to act as prosecutors, I do think that if, for example, you say something like, okay, I'm going to concede to that, I can, if not change my stance, or that doesn't mean that I can't agree with you or vice versa.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool,
yeah,
perfect.
100%.
Okay, so witnesses, that's one. Would you write that down in the test, beyond a reasonable doubt, or
100%?
Yeah, so beyond a reasonable doubt,
or whatever would be equivalent, right? So obviously, what's on trial today is the Bible, which is a written work. It's not a person. So some things aren't going to cross over. Witnesses does, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
What I'd see evidence being closest to is like evidence, like
so you need evidence,
documentation and stuff like that
outside the Bible.
Yeah,
cool. So historic evidence,
historic evidence, history in itself. The Bible itself obviously is a good thing to use because it's got historical elements in it.
Okay, so the credibility of what's written in the Bible as well, I guess. In a way.
Yeah, because it's just a written work, right? So the credibility of the whole written work.
Okay, so is it credible? Okay, so based on what you said, obviously feel free to add more. This is what I've got down so far. So number one, there needs to be witness testimony in it, which is perfect because there's even a verse in the Bible that speaks about that you shouldn't find someone guilty off one man's word. That there should be more than one witness. That's how you could prove that someone's guilty. And I believe that was in Leviticus. So cool. So witnesses, beyond reasonable doubt. So it's the legal threshold. There needs to be historic evidence as well. Whether it's countries, dates, and and it needs to be credible. Like what's actually inside it as well in terms of what it says. You get what I mean? Because you can have all these things, but then be telling somebody to do a mad thing. So,
that's
cool.
Yeah, which is
so. Is there anything else that you would like to possibly add to this? Because remember, this is your test, right? Your prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in itself is enough. Yeah.
Alright, cool, sweet. Based on that. So we've done your test, so we've gone through that already. It's interesting because what the first question I'll probably ask as well then, in terms of what makes you think that the Bible is unreliable? Obviously I know that you probably got loads of information, but just briefly, like within a sentence, if you could tell me why you think the Bible is unreliable.
So great question still.
Yeah.
Alright, so to summarize then, what I'd say is it's a book of many different authors over a huge time span. And we know how Chinese whispers works. Yeah. If you have 12 people in a room,
it's gonna write some things.
The message.
Go on.
This guy plotted.
I'm cooking.
The message that the first 12th person says to the second person, by the time it gets to the 12th person on the other side of the room, is something completely different from what the first person said.
Okay.
So that being known, considering that we've got a book that's compiled with many different authors over a huge time span, over different geographies,
500 years,
way longer than that, way longer than that.
How? Okay, go on. We can speak about it later.
So that's the underlying core premise. I can build more on top of that, but the core premise is that too many authors, too many Chinese whispers, too much time, too many things can change.
I've got so many questions with that already, but have in mind that you said that because I've got questions. I don't want to get into it straight away.
Alright, say no more.
In terms of what you said, but that's crazy. So Chinese whispers, too many authors as well. Okay. And the reason why I believe the Bible is accurate, is because I believe the Bible is a historical book that is there for us which basically it's like an instruction manual.
Historical book.
Yeah, I believe the Bible is a historical book.
So you're saying everything in the Bible is historic fact?
Yeah, and which can be proved.
That's dangerous. Yeah. That's dangerous. That's dangerous.
You could say, I'll prove this.
Okay.
I've got rights to prove this. Yeah, definitely. But I would say that everything, because think about it, just because there might be some stuff that has not been discovered yet, of course, but that does not mean that it didn't happen. That there was a lot of stuff that the Bible said that happened way before science caught up with it, or before modern society caught up with it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But that doesn't mean that at the time, like even just going into the earth, do you know what I mean? A lot of people thought it was round. So a lot of people thought it was flat. A lot of people thought that it was held together by monkeys and da. The Bible spoke about this thousands of years, even before it was modern. But I'll get into that. But one of the things that I would like to start with, because obviously we're speaking about the Bible, so I feel like it's important to use a Bible verse. If you go to 2 Timothy 3:15, this is basically just speaking about, and I'm paraphrasing here, and it's another thing, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up as well, I feel like to really know the Bible, it's really good and important to compare verses to other versions. And the reason why I would say that is because then you really do get the true meaning. Do you know what I mean? Not that the Bible doesn't have the true meaning at face value, but you can find out certain words, whether it be Greek, whether it be Hebrew, XYZ. So I'm paraphrasing here, but the whole point is, from childhood you've been acquainted with sacred writings, yeah? Speaking about the Bible, able to make you wise from salvation through Jesus Christ. 16, all scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, reproof, correction, and righteousness. The man of God be complete. The man of God basically is completely equipped from every good deed with the Bible. So long story short, I'm basically saying that the Bible is sacred writings. This is something that is in the book itself. The Bible is sacred writing breathed out by God. So when you breathed out by God in terms of the Holy Spirit, which then correlates with how, I don't know if you're familiar with how they believe that the Holy Spirit, they said that it was breathed out, the Holy Spirit came out on the disciples like a wind, like God breathed out the Spirit amongst his people. We'll get into that. And number 17, that basically the Bible is a guide for man to use in their every complete work. So that's literally basically what this verse is saying. So, and that's in 2 Timothy 3:15. So moving from there, well, there needs to be, like you said, evidence, right? So if we want to speak about one of the first things you said, your first thing you said is, so witnesses beyond reasonable doubt, historical evidence and credibility. So let's look at evidence. Okay. If I was to look at what evidence to have to prove the validity of the Bible, there's no book in the history of mankind that has been preserved and translated the amount of times the Bible has. We have over 5,800 Greek New Testament manuscripts, yeah, over 20,000 manuscripts in Latin and other languages, yeah, and we have some fragments of these are dating back to decades before when the things that they're speaking about happened, yeah. So these are just two writings as well that I put into place, yeah. There's one curveball I'm gonna throw in there, but I'm not gonna throw in there yet. So when you spoke about that the Bible was corrupted like Chinese whispers, yeah.
I'm not saying corrupted. I'm just saying
changed
because of the element of Chinese whispers. It's hard to say this is something reliable.
Okay, but do you know, I've heard this argument a lot of times, but one thing that people fail to understand, Chinese whispers is, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
What this is in writing. So it's not Chinese whispers as such, in the sense of, if I say something to you, we're human, I might forget what I've just said to you because that's me. But what we have here is things that are written down in writing. So these are not something where it's like, okay, cool, I've written this down, I forgot what I need to write. You can go back to the original text, wherever that may be, and then go back to that to find the original meaning of it. So that's why I feel like it's not really a fair point to say Chinese whispers, because this isn't even, it's not oral. If the Bible was an oral translation and it was never written down, I could completely agree with what you're saying. But the fact that it's actually been written down and preserved, and like I said, this is the #1 book. There's so many other things that people accept as true, but there's less proof of. Do you see what I'm saying to you? And that's the main reason why I don't believe that the book is Chinese. The Bible is Chinese whispers. 5,800 Greek manuscripts, 20,000 in Latin and other languages. Altogether there, bro, you've got nearly 30,000 already, just in different of the Bible being written down. And a lot of people say that, oh, the Bible has changed, the Bible has changed. But do you know how crazy it would have to be for you to... This is back in the days, it was not like the internet where you could pull everything off the internet and then put it back on. For you to change, and some of them were written in clay tablets, some of them were written on parchment paper. So for you to physically, 5,800 tablets, who would have went around the whole world and actually physically changed these? Do you see what I'm trying to say to you? So the fact that we still have these today, and they can be related back to the same language that we're using, and it's pretty much 99% accurate, it goes to show that it could not have been changed.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And the last thing I'd say about that is even Muslims love to say, oh, the Bible's changed, the Bible's been corrupted. But when I ask them a simple question, okay, so if the Bible's changed and the Bible's been corrupted, can you show me what the Bible looked like before it was changed and corrupted? They can't answer. Okay, can you tell me when the Bible was changed and corrupted? They can't answer. Can you show me what particularly was changed? They can't answer. Nobody can answer these things because it's not true. You see what I'm saying to you? Like, and I would love for anybody to show me, whether you're in the comments, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're another religion, what exactly in the Bible was changed, when was it changed, and what was changed before that.
Alright, cool. So obviously there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
And hearing your thing has made me understand more kind of your resolve in it. So where do I start? Alright. If we just limit, because obviously we know that the Bible historically started with the Torah and the Tanakh. Right, which is the Jewish books.
Yeah.
And we don't get the New Testament until basically
later.
So if we just start with the New Testament going forward and make things easier on it.
Perfect.
So in the beginning, just like now, in the beginning, the early Christian followers, they were not in agreement. There were many different groups.
What early Christian followers?
As in the earliest possible time. So from the days of Jesus actually being alive until around 100 years around that time, the early groups weren't in agreement. They were already separate groups, right? Just like we have today. We have Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, Catholics. All the same stuff happened back then.
Can I ask a question though? Do you think that's more to do with human nature or the Bible itself?
But human nature is my main issue here. That's the Chinese whisper element. Because again, humans have been the ones. It was a human or humans that wrote the books. It was humans that decided which books to go into the Bible. You can't separate humans from the Bible. So,
okay, yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So, if we look at the beginning, yeah, you got stuff like Gnostics, I don't remember their names, but if you conflate them to today, how we have different denominations of Christians, you had that in the beginning, right? And they believe different things. So, in already, just from that standpoint, you've got early Christian followers believe different things, believe that the truth was a different way. How do we determine what is the primary truth and what gets carried down to today?
Perfect.
Is it by, let me just finish.
Go on.
Is it by religious merit or is it by power? It's by power.
What do you mean by power?
So, alright, let me give you an example. Let's say today, yeah, what denomination of Christian would you say you are?
Do you know what? That's a really good question. And the reason why I learning more about the Bible, I stay away from that now, personally, just keeping it brief because I know you've got a point, is I wouldn't call myself any denomination of the Bible. I would say I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I use the Bible as kind of like my TV guide, my world guide of basically my worldview book, basically. So I would not consider myself any denomination of Christianity because it's just a religion.
Would you say you disagree with any Christian denomination?
A lot, yeah. Okay,
so then we could say that you are anti their denomination then, if we were to categorize you, because that's something that distinctly separates you from them.
Kind of, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Because you are telling them you are wrong. You wholeheartedly believe that certain denominations you are incorrect, right? So therefore, you're a separate classification of whatever your belief is within Christianity.
I would say, in terms of just following the Bible, I'd say that if you say that you follow, because anyone,
but they could all say the same thing.
So yeah, anyone can say that they follow the Bible. Anyone can say they're Christian, but your fruits is where you will know them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And there's a. I'll go in that later because it will bring on the point that I'm going to speak about later. But in the sense of anyone could call themselves Christian, but just because you say yourself, and this is why I stay away from calling myself Christian. But just because you call yourself a Christian does not mean you're a Christian. Do Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying.
But it's like who decides that? Who dictates whether
in terms
you
of your
are
fruit,
actually are?
your fruits is what you'll know them by. And when that saying the fruits is what you'll know them by, it's more in the sense of saying that you know if this person is authentic by what they have. For example, let's take it to the streets, yeah? If you're saying, right, man's a big trapper, I do this, I sell drugs, I do this, I'm a big boy on the streets, there'll be proof in the pudding. You can't say I'm a trapper, I'm this, I'm that, I've got all the money, I've got this, but then when we go out and we actually look at you, bro, your line don't ring, you ain't got no money, like all of these things that are attributed to you being a big person on the streets aren't there. But
so you're saying the fruits of your faith will show themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
But then you've got Christians in every single day. You've got Christians that are rich, Christians that aren't rich, Christians that are like that can't be what you use to determine who. Because how do you determine? So how do you know? Is it if you're a rich Christian? Is it if you're a poor Christian? Like how do you know?
I don't attribute wealth to God in the sense of a lot of people like, oh yeah, if you know God's in your life because you're wealthy and you're rich and this.
No, but you use the trapper example, so that's why I said rich. But what would you say is the fruits that you could determine whether someone's a Christian by? What are those fruits?
How they act in the sense of, for example, like they say the fruits of the spirit, so love, patience, kindness, self-control, all of these things on top of how you actually worship and you see God. Because there's a lot of people that I can speak about right now. My man's like, for example, somebody like Pastor Toby, bro. Like, so some of his followers, this guy's the guy. Like, so all of his followers probably, oh, he's the, pastor, this or that. But if you really look at what the Bible says, this guy is going contrary to what the actual Bible says. So he is being a hypocrite. Because he's saying, oh, offended them, offended, and all of this, and da, and it's like, but bro, look how Jesus came. Jesus literally came on the opposite of how you're moving. It talks so much about giving to the poor and all of this. That's not to say that because you're rich, you don't have God. No. But there's a reason that God said it's going to be more difficult for the guy who is rich to pass through heaven than the guy who's poor. It's because of the way you think, do you know what I mean? And all of these things that are attributed to you. Somebody like Pastor Toby now, obviously not judging, I'm just saying from what I see.
Yeah, I get
my man's could be on some, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm doing what's right. I'm spreading wealth. I'm spreading this. I'm spreading that. My congregation is healthy and this and that. But when you get down to the real troubles of it, are they acting like Christians? Are they doing what real Christians would do? That's why I say
that's subjective though, and this is the point that I'm making.
It's clear in the book though.
No, but it's clear in the book.
What I'm
it's clear in the book according to your perception of it. Though.
No.
Because someone could read the same book and perceive it a different way, and that's why you get different denominations.
Of course, and that's what I'm saying. That's human, and this is why you need. Again, you know them by their spirits. When you somebody who actually generally wants to know about God, you develop something that is basically the Holy Spirit. Everyone has the Holy Spirit. You accepting Jesus, yeah, but you will be more attentive to it. You will understand it more. You will hear certain things. You will be more fine-tuned to the Spirit. So you will actually generally know if what you're doing is good or bad.
I agree with that.
You could wholeheartedly think, yeah, like Pastor Toby might think, yeah, what he's doing is completely good, whatever. But then when you compare that to the Word of God, does it go contrary to the Word of God? And it's not a black and white thing and, oh, it's an interpretation thing, it's not an interpretation thing. It's either a yes or a no.
But it's not though, because of interpretation. And also, I'm happy you bring up Pastor Toby, yeah? So look, I can align that back with my original point. So let's say, yeah, today you've got Pastor Toby and whatever that denomination you call it, Tobiacs or whatever, Baptists, whatever, people that just consider themselves pure followers of Christ, right? Let's say today Pastor Toby is made the Prime Minister or the king of the world, yeah? And obviously, as the king of the world, he gets to say that my Tobyism denomination of Christianity is the correct one. So everything else is getting burnt out. From now on, it's Tobyism. So now if we go 2,000 years forward, we have a new Tyrone and a new great debating, and that great is following Tobyism, because at the time, the early founders, one of them was in power and decided. So that exact same thing was happening around the time of the early Christian followers. You had some groups that believed Jesus was a human prophet and not divine. You had some groups that believed he was divine but not physical. Some believed that he just taught secret wisdom, so nothing to even do with prophet or nothing like that. And some that thought he was human but adopted by God later. So you've really got 4 different strains of belief there. If one of them is connected to power, which the Romans were, this is how Christianity got so big, they were in charge at the time. If one of them is connected to power, then they make their denomination correct based on human power, not based on divine truth. And for me, that's a big reason why it could be unreliable.
Okay. I like the fact that you said that 100%, because like again, everything that we do think, everything's about perspective, right? How you receive it and whatnot. So I agree with you on that completely. This is why it's important to then bring your perspective back to the Bible.
But the Bible could be, and this is the point that I'm making. So the Bible that you're reading today is what's been put together and accepted based on whoever was in power at the time. So as you know, there's many different books.
Yeah.
But you've got a book that's been curated.
Yeah.
Humans have sat down and said, these 66 belong.
No,
these other 12 don't.
Do you know why that's false?
Who gives them that power?
Do you know why that's false? And let me tell you the reason why I believe that's false. It's because I read into this whole council stuff, the Council of Nicaea, where they came and they put all the Bible together, They did not create any new books at the time.
But they were books to choose from.
Of course, there were books to choose from at the time. All they did was put a framework there for things that already existed. So all these books, the 66 books that were there at the time, the reason that they got put in the Bible was because they've done the same test that we're doing now and realised that these books are credible.
But what test could they have done? What test is there to do?
The same things that we're doing now. Was this written at the time of the person? Was this written by somebody who knew the person or by the person exactly?
But how could they know that? How can they know that?
Of course they can know that.
They're writing nearly 1,200. They're doing this nearly 1,200 years after Jesus was born.
You've got the manuscripts. There's even and this goes into one of the other things you said in terms of witnesses. When I think it was, I believe it was Luke. Yeah, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was Luke. When he wrote the Bible, he said not only did he say I'm going to carefully investigate this, but he also wrote living witnesses that were still there at the time. Like there was 500 people. I think he said there was at least. When they done the math, there was at least 300 people that probably would have been still living around the same time that he wrote that would have actually seen Jesus.
Well, how do you know Luke wrote the Bible?
No. I'm talking Luke. What Luke wrote in terms of
That's what I'm asking you. How do you know Luke wrote what
Luke wrote that chapter in the Bible?
How do you know that?
Because it was all of this was documented. And this
Where was it documented?
Okay, have you heard of something called the Dead Sea Scrolls? Let's talk about
Codex. But Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't relate to New Testament though, because that's old for old.
Yeah, but the Codex Sciatica,
which is Latin.
That's New Testament. But let's go back to the Old Testament for a second.
Alright, let's go back to the Old Testament.
So if we're looking at the Old Testament, this is the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is something that no one can debate from, in the sense of when people talk about the Bible or change, everyone could look at this up themselves. Yeah, this was found in the Qumran, I think, mountains.
The tunnels or something.
Something like that. In 1957, I believe. Yeah, don't quote me on it, but I believe 1957. Okay, this is this is like the 20th century, right? When all of this is happening, 50 years before. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So this is still fairly new. Yeah, and this is things that were written back thousands of years before. Yeah. When they examined that, Isaiah is one of the books that in one of the books that were found in there, and it's pretty much nearly complete. 95%, accurate to modern translation. 95. This is something that was found. This is something that was written thousands of years before. So just by that alone, we can then have, and right now I'm just talking about the credibility. I'm not talking about in terms of what the actual Bible says. I'm talking about knowing that something is credible. There's a difference between knowing something is credible and knowing that is what it's saying here the truth.
But why
I'm just trying to prove the credibility of it.
But why does that make it credible?
The fact that we translate, this was something that was written. Remember, there's thousands
of years ago.
Thousands of years ago. Not only remember, there's 20,000 manuscripts in Latin. There's 5,800 in Greek alone. So these are
all that's New Testament.
No. Okay, I would agree with you on the Greek one. Okay, cool.
Because the original Bible it's a Hebrew people, right?
Yeah.
So their writings are Hebrew. Let's not forget that.
Okay.
So the fact that our earliest manuscript, they're not even manuscript. The manuscript is what was officially written by the person. The fact that our earliest manuscripts are all in languages that weren't even the people's languages is a red flag.
But I'm talking those. You're right, and that was a mistake on my part. Those two things I'm talking about is the New Testament. Yeah, the Old Testament. The best thing we have for that is the Dead Sea. That, like you said, that contained the Tanakh and the Torah. They contain all the Old Testament. They even contain some books that are not found in the Bible. And at the time when I'm reading that, hold on, let me land. Right. At the time when I was reading that, I thought, so if that's the case, why didn't they include this? And then I understood in the sense of, I read the story. It's called Bel and the Dragon or something like that, and it's to do with Daniel. basically, and it's a story to do with Daniel. And how basically he was a king and not king, sorry, how there was a king and how basically there was an actual physical dragon that Daniel killed by feeding him food, and how there was a king at the time who worshipped a fake god, and Daniel was like, bro, this god is fake, I could prove it to you that this god is fake. And what he did was he actually so they put bare food there, they sealed it up. Before they sealed it up, Daniel put flour and stuff on the floor. During the night, the people came in, they ate the food. In the morning when they came, it was still sealed up. And the king was like, see, this God Israel. Daniel's like, look at all these footprints. It's not human footprints. So that's how they found out, okay, it's actually humans that were eating all the food. So long story short, what I'm trying to explain is this story was found within the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when I looked up, why was this not included in the Bible? The reason why it wasn't recorded in the Bible, because they could not determine whether this was actually written by the prophet or not.
But how can they ever determine whether a writing is written by the prophet or not?
Obviously through the test that they did, whether this was accurate, maybe the writing style, the languages that were used, even that, there's different stuff like parchment paper, all of this type of things, but they determined that this was not written. But they concluded that it had some sort of validity because of it was written within the same era, but they could not prove that this is either written by Daniel or that it was written in the same time as when the story happened. So because of that, that's why they left a lot of these stories out.
So what they're basically trying to say is that it's possible that even from all them thousand years back, people were putting fake stories in the Bible.
No, you're not.
That's because that's what that essentially boils down to.
It's not fake stories. It's, for example, if me and you witness something that happened today, me and you were first eyewitnesses. If we go write about it, if we go and tell somebody about it, that makes our proof a lot more stronger. But there's a difference between somebody hearing the story that we've spoken about today, and him writing that. He might have all the facts. What he says might actually be true, but the fact that he wasn't actually there, the fact that he's got no relation to anything that was going on, that goes to show that, okay, cool, this guy is not, it might be reliable, it might be true what he's saying, but we cannot put this in the Bible because it has not passed the same test that the others did.
But what test is that? You keep saying this test, yeah? Like,
remember,
what test is that?
My test that I'm talking about, and remember this is your test, yeah?
No, but what test you're saying so that they had a test to say what was valid and what wasn't.
And which is, so the accuracy from translation from the original text. That's test number 1. So the events are grounded on history. Test number 2. The claims are coherent. Test number 3. Message has credibility based on evidence. Test number 4. And 5, the 5th test, the Bible is trustworthy in what it teaches. So in terms of, imagine them doing this test and dissecting each piece of information. That's how they will come to the conclusion whether this was this passed or not. And from what I read, yeah, if it failed one of the tests, it was not put in the Bible. So everything else that was put in the Bible passed all the tests.
But who are they to determine what is passing and what's not passing?
And let me clarify in the sense of what these lot did. They didn't decide. They already decided on things that were already known at the time. So it's not like they came and said, okay, cool, this is in the Bible, that's in the Bible. These were, the books are already there, were already known to the people at the time to be books of the Bible. All of these other myths and other things that surrounded them, the people at the time already knew that, okay, cool, this might just be, that there's a difference between an autobiography and
a biography.
Yeah,
that's true.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? So, okay, this person might have wrote it from blah, blah, blah. So that's the difference in terms of what they realised at the time. So it's not a fact that they came together and put, oh, yeah, let's just put this book in, let's put that book in it. They literally just made what was already, the information was already known at the time. They just consolidated it.
No,
they did.
Because books got left out.
But the reason, and this is my point, the reason why the books got left out is because at the time, the books that were left out were already seen as books. Like I said, it's not an autobiography, this is a biography. This could have been...
But all of it's a biography. None of it is the first person.
In the sense, okay, so what's the... Because there's a...
literally none of it is the first person.
What's the made-up story? An anthology? Is it an anthology? What's the... Man, don't mock me. Don't mock me. But what's the...
Are you talking about all like the Greek...
No. Like, you know when you have books, yeah? What's a made-up story called?
Fiction.
boom, fiction. Sorry, cool. So there's fiction, there's non-fiction, blah blah blah. So it's like there's different types of books. Do you get what I mean? But that doesn't, which tells you about the information. What I'm trying to say is that at that time already, people already knew what books were fiction, what books were non-fiction.
But they didn't though, because if they did, you wouldn't need to put together a council to make this known.
No, they did, but think about this is something that's going globally. If something happened within a local area, if something happens in North London, the people in North London know what's going on. There could be rumours on what's going on in South and East or whatever, depending on who you speak about, but the people within that area knew. And what I'm trying to basically say is that the council that came to a time, they already knew what was going on in the area. They were just confirm, because this was spreading outside the area, they were confirming what was already known.
Yeah, but you're saying they were confirming what was already known, yeah? What was already known to who? This is a very small, this is a relatively small amount of people, yeah? This is like 10 to 20 people, yeah, in a world of billions of people. So first of all, what gives them the power to say, okay, these Dead Sea Scrolls that are way older than us, way older than us, we can say, yeah, that part was just fiction, this part was non-fiction. How can you say that? You don't know that.
Remember you have to go based on the credibility of it. And same way, I think, you know what, we're stuck on this point, but I feel like once we go through everything that we spoke about, then you'll be able to know. Remember, the whole point is this: we're presenting it in an argument as a case. So what kind of evidence do we have that backs up whether this is credible or whether it's not credible? And I think even for one of the books, I think it was like the Book of Enoch. I can't remember. Okay, let me not quote because I don't know what book it was. But long story short, one of the books found in the Dead Sea Scrolls was written. Imagine the story was based on 30 years ago, yeah, but the paper he used to write it and all of that was only used in maybe in the last 5. So that's 25. This is just an example for saying. So that's 25 years. So he's writing about something that happened within that time, from talking about first person that this is what happened, blah blah blah. But the paper itself isn't even as old as the story. So then that kind of goes to show that, okay, cool. But then the actual other story that there is, the actual Book of Daniel, whatever it may be, shows that this was written in a time, and you could prove it because of the language that was used, because of this was blah blah blah. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like there was some books like, and what the last thing I'll say on this, like, I think it was like the Book of Mary or this or that, whatever, Some of the names that they used at the time were not names until however much longer. But it was talking about a time that was before. So just from linguistics and things like that alone, you can basically decipher and understand that, okay, cool, you're talking about a further period, but you're using things that are new. That's like somebody saying, like somebody going back in time and being like, okay, cool, I've got a new mobile phone, but I meant to be in the 90s. That's out of place. You're going to know that something's out of place. And that's what they used. And that's some of the methods which they used to kind of see what is credible and what is not. And that doesn't mean that these books that are there aren't useful at all. It just means that they believe that they were not Holy Spirit inspired. That's it.
But that's my whole point. Just the fact that a small group of people can have that much power over what's going to in future be your whole belief system, to me is a problem. Even if we just isolate in on the small point that you made about the Dead Sea Scrolls, yeah? I'm happy you brought it up because I can use that as a point to why I say the Bible is not valid.
Okay, go on.
Dead Sea Scrolls is one of the oldest. It's not. I don't know if it's the oldest, but it's the oldest. It's the oldest. It's the oldest copy, because it's not a manuscript, but it's the oldest copy that the world has of the original Hebrew text, right? And in that oldest copy that we have a story that is said to be not. What's the word? Canon. Yeah. It's not canon. It's not like officially accepted as the Bible. So the fact that our oldest records can have that, what does that say about every single record or copy after that? Like the oldest ones we have a story that's not canon.
But one thing you're not realizing though is that let's put the canon down for example, yeah, because that's more going into what the book's saying in terms of the actual validity of whether this is true or whether it is copied correctly. The only book that was left out of the Dead Sea Scrolls is Esther. Yeah, every other book contained it. So even if you want to say and include the books that are not canonized and be like, okay, cool, this is the whole Bible. That still doesn't take away anything from the Bible that we have today, because all the other books were included. Genesis, Leviticus,
No,
Numbers,
but it shows
all
you
of them.
that you that humans can edit what is your final product today.
No, because even when you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was very clear in terms of they knew the books that were there to accompany. It was not there in the sense of like, see how it wasn't the situation where like from my understanding anyway, it's not like you had just one book and that was it. There was loads of different manuscripts and all of this and da.
Exactly.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? So what I'm basically trying to say in the sense of like all of this stuff, it was still about, it existed around that back in the day. All it was is somebody coming together, okay, cool. And remember, a lot of these things with the Bible and all these manuscripts, they were trying to be destroyed by the Romans and all the people, conquerors and XYZ. So imagine me just getting a bunch of books now. I believe that, okay, cool. Like, it's like a time capsule. Boom. There's the fires breaking out in the house. I've now grabbed these books because I want them to survive, and I put them in all together, blah, blah, blah. Does that mean, just because I put some fiction books with non-fiction books, does that mean that all the books that are in that time capsule are not relevant?
It means that source is not valid. It's not trustworthy, because like you said, you've just scooped in fiction, and now over the years we don't know what's fiction and what's not fiction.
No, but I'm not trying, when I say fiction and not fiction, I'm not trying to say, like I said, that the books here don't have any sort of relevance. I'm just trying to say in the sense of, the reason I'm saying non-fiction is just to differentiate between what they believed at the time was inspired, written by the prophets or somebody close to them through the Holy Spirit, and what was maybe like fan fiction. A fan has wrote this, or somebody who's heard the stories wrote this. That does not mean...
But no one can distinguish who did it. Like, how can we, or even people from 1,200 years ago, distinguish what was fan fiction and what was real from their time 2,000 years before that?
I remember I've said through, of course you can, through the linguistic language.
You can't.
Bro, you're saying that.
They didn't have linguistic breakdown 1,200 years ago, bro.
Through the names and things like that, and through things that was
but this
going
is
on.
just writing.
Remember in terms of, you got paper that's dating back to thousands of years, and then you've got another piece of paper that's newer than that piece of paper. Mm-hmm. You can say that this was not written in the same time as this was.
Yeah, right.
So just by that alone, you can then decipher and be like, okay, cool. If this was written in this time and it's been accepted, and this story was meant to be written in that same time, but evidence shows that it wasn't written in that time, it was written after that, I can conclude and say that, okay, cool, this might have been fan fiction. That doesn't mean that what is written in there is not true and not credible, but I mean in the sense of, this was not written by the original author. And things like that can happen. So
what's your way of knowing what was written by an original author and who the original author was?
Let's go through it.
But
yeah.
What's your answer to that though?
So the answer I have to that would be if... Okay, cool. For example, if it is grounded within historical evidence. For example, the story of Bel and the dragon, talking about Daniel, no one's ever seen a dragon.
No one's ever seen a giant.
You've seen,
or a Nephilim.
You say that, but then no
one's ever seen a wild flood.
No, but
there's bare things that you can say that people have never
but
seen.
then there's proof of these things. For example,
there's no proof of a wild flood.
There is. If you go on Google right now in terms of the proof of the wild flood, not only does every religion speak about it,
that's
there's
not
actually it is.
That's a legendary tale.
It's not a legendary
tale. That's not historical proof.
By every single religion all over the world. That shows that something happened.
No, that shows that people were copying the same story.
No. It shows that if you've got...
Because you can go back to Egyptians, even before the Hebrew people, talking about Horus and all these things with a divine child. There's bare times that stories are copied. We're talking about historical evidence. But
what I'm basically trying to say is that there is proof that there was there was even a book that I read and talking about how that there's loads of underground fossils like sea fossils and all this stuff on high mountains, and they would not have been able to get there if there wasn't some sort of deluge. There even in mythology and all of this blah blah, there is some sort of proof that at some point in the world that the world was covered with flood, some sort of 100%.
Do you have a thing that you can give the viewers to go and see the source that you're saying that will agree with what you're saying about
I'd
that.
I'd have to get the
Because I personally don't think that's true. I don't think that's historical. Because the point that Great was making is that we can discount the Daniel dragon story because it doesn't sound, there's no proof of dragons.
No. That's not my point. The point I was trying to make in a sense of like, for example, like if we're talking about historical facts, the proof, it's not about there being proof of a dragon, because really and truly you could, for example, you could argue and say a lizard or a dinosaur or whatever is a dragon. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But what I'm saying, and that could be proof in itself, because you've got bones. You've got fossils, all these things. Just because it doesn't breathe dragon as we think it would today, that does not mean that it didn't exist.
But remember, you started by discounting the story. Now it sounds like you're saying it could be.
No, but when I'm discounting in the sense of, for example, like, I'm the main reason I was discounting it is that from what I've read, it said that in terms of, it was not written within the same time as the other Daniel was written. This was written after. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's the main reason for discounting. But my whole thing in the sense of like...
So you're saying the fact that the dragon story should be discounted because it was written after?
Not written after in that text, but written after, and it was concluded that it wasn't the same writer. So imagine...
Bare books in the Bible are different writers.
No, but you're writing something pretending to be me. That's a difference. If, like, it's not about... like obviously...
But that's the same as Matthew, Luke...
Yeah, but they're writing it themselves.
They're not writing it themselves.
They are, bro.
Nowhere in the Bible. Do you know that where it says as thingy by Matthew and as thingy? Do you know that was added later by the church?
As what?
In the original manuscripts, it doesn't say. So in Matthew, Luke, John, where the church is added are as foretold by Matthew or as thingy by Luke. The original manuscripts don't say the names.
I'm not okay. If I was to go,
and that's claiming to be written by Luke by Matthew.
If I went to, hold on. If I went to, where is this?
Yeah, like Matthew says according to Matthew, and Mark says according to Mark. That was added by the church, but the manuscripts don't say that.
So so Luke is it Luke 25? Okay, Luke 24:25, yeah. Paraphrasing again, where he says, "All the prophets have spoken. What is necessary for Christ to suffer?" 27. Beginning with Moses, he interpreted to all Scripture the things concerning himself. So this is basically him. Oh no, that's not the point I was gonna make. Let me get the. Hold on. Luke, yeah, cool. Luke 1:1-4 states he investigated everything carefully and wrote an orderly account. So this is Luke. So this is not. This is actually within Scripture itself.
It says what? Say that again.
So if you go to Luke 1:1-4, yeah, this is the very start. He states that he was sure to investigate everything carefully and give an orderly account.
It says, does it say he or does it say Luke?
It says he was. Let's read it. Let's read it, bro.
So it says he. It doesn't say. Luke.
Let's read it.
But you've written it down as he.
No, but remember I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. So what's the thing?
Luke says Luke 1 verse 1-4, innit? Do you know what I like to do as well? I'll get a verse up on my phone and I'll go on the Bible app and I'll say compare. I think that's the easiest way to do it. But Luke, so we're gonna look at Luke 1:1-4, yeah?
Yeah, Luke 1-4. Luke chapter 1 verses 1-4.
Yeah. So it's basically, this calls it to introduction, yeah? I'm trying to stay away from the NIV version and the NLT as well.
What's your problem with those versions?
I want to get the close. There's nothing wrong with the version at all. There's nothing wrong with them versions. I just want to be able to get as close to the Greek as possible. So there's no arguments, no nothing. Do you get me? So if that's the only thing that's there, yeah, Hebrew and Greek. It even says Hebrew and Greek. I like this a lot. Okay, so
how can it be in Hebrew?
No. This is on the app. It says it's not actually in Hebrew, but yeah. So it says many have undertaken to draw an account of things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who, from the first eyewitnesses and servants of the world. Yeah. So remember this, and this is another. This goes against one of the things that you said. So it has to be witnesses. Yeah. Speaks about eyewitnesses. So not only does it say it was handed down to us by those from the first eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Philophos, whatever that is, so you may know that certainly all the things have been taught. So this is how Luke starts. Yeah. So this isn't what you said. Is nothing to do with he refers to it as himself.
So there's no, so it doesn't say Luke anywhere basically.
But it literally says, where it says blah blah, I myself.
Yeah. So where does it say? So as a reader of the book, how do you know that this is Luke speaking?
Because it's the book of Luke.
But who made it say the book of Luke?
What
That's
do you
the
mean who
church.
made it say my book of Luke?
So if in the actual book itself it doesn't use the man's name, then who can ascribe who the text belonged to?
I don't understand what you mean. That's like me saying, bro, I've written a book.
If we find a letter right now, yeah, that says, I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. and I went to bed, can either me or you tell anyone who wrote that letter?
Of course not. But then,
that's the exact same thing
if the letter has a title, you will know, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. The letter doesn't have a title. The
It does have a
church
title.
have given it a title. But the text, nowhere in the text itself does it say Luke. So how do we know that a man named Luke wrote this?
Let's just go with the way of what you're saying, yeah? Cool. From time it said I myself, yeah? So can we agree that whoever's writing this is somebody who...
Is a human. Yeah, I can agree to that.
Human, cool. But I mean in the sense of whoever, because he says I've carefully investigated, so I myself. So if you were then to go and continue to read on to Luke, the book, and it alludes to it being Luke himself writing it, then would you be able to concede?
I would have to see proof of it anywhere saying that Luke wrote it.
Okay, let's look at...
Which is an example of me saying Chinese whispers.
How?
Because the church can just slap names on it and say, okay, this person wrote this person wrote that, this person... Show me how.
1 second. Okay. The reason why I know this, yeah, is because I think, okay, you've got Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. In one of the books, Jesus feeding the 5,000, yeah, and I learned this today actually. Jesus asked Philip, yeah, how much basically the fish is or something like that in this area. He asked him a question. At the time, you'd think that that's irrelevant information, but when you look at it, at the context, the reason why he asked Philip was because Philip was from that area. You could have asked other people. You could have asked the tax collector. You could have asked other people who knew more, like things in terms of what's going on. But he asked Philip because that was he asked Philip because he was the person from this area. You don't know that until you read another book of, I think it was Mark or something like that. So I'm basically trying to say is that if you actually read the Bible in terms of, okay, this is a historical book, they actually complement each other. Like you said, you don't know who wrote Matthew, Mark. It could be anyone. But the fact that they've got same information, it's like, bro, you know,
because one came first, and then the other ones were able to just copy from an original.
Come on, as smart as you are, do you really think that?
Of course.
So you think a man has?
Of course, that's how you can get stuff like the
So why are they
Quran.
not? So why are they not all the same? Why do they give different accounts?
But a lot of them are the same.
No, they're not.
A lot of there's almost carbon copies between Mark and Luke.
Bro, they give very different accounts in the sense of, like, for example, one speaks about I think it was Peter cutting somebody's ear, cutting one of the prisoners' ears off. The other one didn't speak about that. One speaks about how Judas fell headlong first and his belly split out. The other one says that he was hanged. You're saying this, and this goes to show, if you think about it like this, if you really wanted to say, okay, cool, this is exactly what happened, you're going to have the exact same story. If me and you right now are going to collude together to the police, we're going to tell them the exact same thing. You're not going to be like, oh, but this happened, because then that's going to cast more doubt. But the fact that it is there goes to show human nature, what people actually... This is what I encountered. I saw it from my perspective. You saw it from your perspective.
But hold on, you just said that at the beginning of Luke, he said that he's done research to compile what he's writing. So whoever's even writing this themselves have just said at the beginning of this verse that they didn't witness it themselves. They went to go and speak to people to find out the story. That's what the start of the thing that you read just said, right? And also, if we think about who these people are, yeah, Matthew, Mark, these are apostles, right? And who are they? They were like fishermen and stuff like that. They weren't well-educated people. So you're telling me that they themselves wrote down their account in a language they don't even speak primarily. They speak Aramaic, but they've gone to go and write their whole story in highly educated Greek.
Hey, bro, And that's what I think is so amazing about the Bible. And the reason why I say that, hold on. The reason why I say that as well, you yourself said 40 different authors, written over the span of 1,500 years. There's no collaboration, even if they wanted to. No, deep it though. Even from Genesis to Revelation, you would not know that there's another author. You would think this is...
Of course you would.
No,
Stop
bro,
it.
what do you mean stop it? Bro, let me
if you just compare Genesis... Go on.
You would not think... The whole book is completely cohesive.
It's not.
It talks about the fall. It talks about redemption. It talks about coming back to
it's God. So different.
What's the difference?
Even if we just compress it down to the Gospels, John's Gospel is so wildly different from Matthew. Luke. John writes like someone who's very like esoterical, very spiritual. Like this is a very different person who's wrote this thing from somebody else.
Okay, let me rephrase what I'm saying then, in the sense of different authors, okay, cool, fair enough, because different writing styles and whatnot.
Oh, you're saying the story's cohesive?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree that the story's cohesive.
And how? If you really deep it in the sense of, bro, this is 40, like I just said, if me and you wanted to concoct something today, we had 30 people, there's no way in anything that we're going to get 30 people to say exactly what. It's, come on, bro.
Bro, that's like saying,
it's impossible.
Bro, that's like saying that you couldn't write a TV series with 8 seasons. That's exactly what happened. A TV series with 8 seasons, with hour-long episodes each. That's just an acted version of something written down. Because remember, they started as a script.
But without knowing the producer, without knowing the writer,
that's why you have the Council of Nicaea to put these things together and make it make sense.
Yeah, but the Council of Nicaea did not put anything together in the sense of like, bro, the information. Okay, let's find common ground.
Okay.
Yes or no? Was the information from the Council of that they put together? This was information that was already around.
Yes.
They did not make up any new information.
No.
They did not add any new information.
They might have.
Where did you see
They might have. They might have.
In where?
We don't know.
But they didn't though.
You don't know that. How can you know?
And the reason I do know that is because the two things. So you got the Dead Sea Scrolls, which backs up the Old Testament, and you got the Codex Sinaitica, which backs up the New Testament, which is the earliest
manuscript of the New Testament.
Yeah. So these two things. If we want to look at, remember, I'm not talking about what's inside them. I'm just talking about translation wise. If you want to look at translation based on,
I'm not debating translation though.
No.
I'm debating what's inside it. That's what matters.
Okay, but what? No, but it's important because if you, for example, for me to say something's been corrupted and something's been changed, if I can go back to the earliest form of what that thing was and compare it to what we have now, and what is there is pretty much the exact same thing, I can say that what I have has not been changed.
No, but you don't have the original. Alright, cool. So, Jesus is alive.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus dies around the year 30 or the year 33, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Our earliest physical transcript now goes to like the year 400.
No, it doesn't.
So that means there's a gap from the year 30 all the way to the year 40 that's just spoken word and Chinese whisper. So your first manuscript, I can't even put that much trust in. Because there's already a 300-year gap between what actually happened and what's written down.
Do you know what's annoying when people say this about... Bro, okay, so we've already agreed that the Bible is the most recorded, the most preserved book in the whole of existence, right?
Yeah. I'll give you that.
Nobody ever argued. So what about... But look how much scrutiny the Bible's come under saying, oh, it's not real, da. What about all the other information we just take as fact?
Because, but any other information...
But they've only got one source, they've only got two. Like, if you were to look it up now, something like, I think it was Homer, and I can't remember, there was some other people, Bro, they only had like 10 copies, 15 copies, or however much copies of this people. But we take it as fact. Why? Because you look at it and you say, yes, this is historically accurate. Yes, this is something that actual...
humans are gullible. I agree with you. You don't even have to go that deep for me to agree that we're gullible, because we are. If we just see a news on Twitter or TikTok, we'll believe it straight away.
Exactly.
But that's how humans are. So that just goes to show how easy it is to promote a story to a human and not believe it.
No, but back in the day.
And back then it's even worse. There's no way to verify anything.
No, but it wasn't like that back in the day.
Of course it was like that back in the day.
Bro, do you think back in the day you could say something and people think it's true?
Of course.
Of course not.
How can you check it?
And do you know,
whoever is in power, that's true.
And let me give you the proof, So if you want to look at let's start getting into some facts, so people will know in it. But if you look at the Bible, so much that was written within the Bible, they speaks about God coming down. It speaks about God flooding the world. It speaks about God destroying the world. If we are just to say and take all of these things at face value, you're telling me if God came down today in a cloud of smoke, I am God, this, that, all of this, everyone's going to believe it.
If they see it themselves,
Of course not.
What do you, so you're saying if somebody physically see it themselves, they won't believe it?
100% not.
You don't think they'll believe it if they see it themselves?
Bro, people make excuses.
When we believe much less.
No, of course, but like you said, people make excuses for anything. So I'm saying if God was to come down right now and say, yes, I am God.
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be people that believe it.
Straight away believe
it. But not you say that, but there's so many people that be like, this is just a conspiracy. It's the government.
It's the ones who don't see it themselves that will say that.
But people will see it from themselves and they will still deny it, bro.
I don't think so.
You really don't think so?
I don't think so. It's always from second hand onwards is where you get people saying stuff like that. But when people experience stuff themselves, they never not believe it.
Okay, so then if we don't look at the Bible accounts, they actually saw God for themselves.
We don't know
but
that,
they continued. No. But remember, where I'm basing this off. This is historical fact,
But how is that historical fact?
No, but just go with me first and you'll see what I'm trying to say,
But remember, you're supposed to be proven without a reasonable doubt to the juror that this happened.
Of course, but what I'm trying to say is that, remember, from your logic, once you see it, you're going to believe it. So many miracles that are in the Bible, why did they not just say that the people believed straight away? They didn't. They still said the people did not believe. They still said that the people, because by your logic, okay, cool, this happened in the Bible.
But the people that were right next to Jesus believed straight away. The ones that saw him walk on water believed straight away. Of course they did.
No, they didn't, because even, and I love that story because I thought the same thing too about when Jesus walked on water. But the reason why, but I didn't even know that Jesus walking on water. He called out for his disciples to come out. The disciples started walking on water first as well. And then what happened? He fell because he took his eyes off God and he started to doubt himself. This is somebody who's seeing a next man walk on water and you're still doubting yourself. You're seeing it with your own eyes. Same way with the crucifixion. You've seen this guy. I watched The Passion the other day, Bro, at first I was annoyed. Why is it in Aramaic and not English? I was pissed off. But then when I'm actually deep in it, and I'm reading the subtitles and whatnot, bro, it's a great, fantastic movie. People still saw that man go through what he came through, saw him the next day, and they still didn't believe.
No, they didn't, though, bro. So you're trying to say that bare people saw him the next day? Only 3 people saw him the next day?
There was at least 500 people that saw him.
That saw him resurrect?
Show
me that in the Bible. Show me that in the Bible. Okay,
this is what I'm pretty sure this is written by
500 people saw him resurrect.
Over 500 people.
You're gonna have to show me that still. Anybody that was close enough to see his miracles, they believed, and that's why I'm saying anyone who sees anything like that today will believe. But anyone who would have heard secondhand, especially all the other Jewish people at the time, they'll just be like, "Oh, why are you making false prophets?"
I'm trying to think the maddest. Trying to think though. Okay, First Corinthians. I've even got it written down. I don't even know why I'm looking at it. You know, them was there. Bro. But it's because it's there. You get me? It's actually because it's there. But First Corinthians 15 from 3 to 8. Paul listed eyewitnesses, even said some of their names, and even said they were still alive. So Jesus appeared to more than 500 people at once. The majority of whom were still living when Paul the Apostle wrote his letter. And that's another thing that I forgot to mention in the last ones, And there was letters that were written coupled with the Bible, which gave the Bible validity because...
Coupled with the Bible?
Coupled with the Bible is in the sense of, imagine I've written something in the Bible, I've written a verse in the Bible, I've written a book in the Bible, and then I've now written a letter to some churches saying that I've written this. Paul done that there. Paul wrote their letters.
Paul, I agree. Their letters. That's the one thing I agree with. Paul wrote letters.
Exactly.
And signed it by Paul.
And when he spoke about some of these letters, he also spoke about Luke. He spoke about some of the other people.
He didn't. Show me where he referenced any other gospel in any, because do you know what? Do you know why the Pauline letters or the Pauline letters were written before the gospels were written? So there are no gospels for him to be able to reference.
No. It's not about mentioning the gospel. It's
and his
mentioning the
letters are
people.
even are way after Jesus died as well. So even he's not speaking from first-hand account.
People. But you know what it is? Jesus only lived for 30-something years. So it would be ludicrous for people to
that
think...
were around at the time, innit?
No, of course. But I mean in the sense of, like, me personally, like, I think we're starting a podcast, but we filmed how many episodes and it's taken us how long? We're not just going to blow overnight. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's the same thing with that in the sense of, if I want to do something properly, it's going to take time.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
30 years is a long time, though.
Yeah, but he didn't start his ministry until he was...
Well, 15, 16 years, 14, it's a long time. And he only really got big globally because of the Romans.
Yeah, it says Paul mentioned numerous people throughout his letters and the book of Acts, including several key figures in early church.
Right, so none of that is Gospels. I told you. The Pauline letters is first. Acts isn't Gospels.
Yeah, but the Acts were written by... I'm pretty sure the Acts was written by one of the... by some of the disciples, it says.
I'm talking specifically about Matthew, Mark, Luke and John.
So yeah, John, he is mentioned along with Peter and James as one of the pillars of the church in Galatians 2:9. Barnabas is mentioned. Timothy is mentioned. I still think it's just touchscreen. Timothy is mentioned. Titus is mentioned. Luke, described by Paul as his beloved physician, as the only one with him near the end of his life. Traditionally is considered the author of the Gospels of Luke and the book of Acts. It's quite a lot of people that actually were mentioned by Paul still.
So Paul there has just said that Luke was with Paul at the end of Paul's life as his physician, meaning that Luke was much younger than Paul.
Let me just clarify that. So Luke, described by Paul as his beloved physician.
So his doctor.
Yeah, and the only one with him near the end of his life, traditionally considered the author of the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts. So they're saying that Luke wrote Acts and Luke itself. But okay, let me get into some.
Let's get back to
get into some structure. Just so so does the message remain? Okay, so boom. My main thing, let's go number one. So historical validity,
Cool.
And forget about the dead. Just go forget about this. King David, Bible figure. Tell Dan Stelly, it's basically like a carving that was written on some stone, speaking about the house of David. This is something that was written in the Bible and historically found it. Yeah, you can look that up. So that's one. That's not.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Number two, Pontius Pilate. Yeah, and this is why these two are so important, because Jesus is meant to come from David. Pontius Pilate. The same thing. There was an inscription basically saying that the area that he was from, and Pontius Pilate, blah blah blah, was basically the ruler of this area in the same time that Jesus was there.
Yeah, because Romans are real. I don't dispute anything you're saying.
Of course. So I'm trying to put historical facts within the Bible. So these are where it's mentioned. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Okay. So this is where it was mentioned. So King David was mentioned in the Bible. Historically, it turned out to be true. Pontius Pilate is mentioned in the Bible. Turned out to be true. Even if you want to disprove those two, let's go for locations. Jerusalem, we know Jerusalem is real. Jericho, that's real. I'm
not disputing.
But remember, we're trying to. But remember, the whole point is, I think there's two different questions here. Not only what the Bible claims is different to how valid the Bible is.
Yeah, I agree.
Two completely separate
different things.
So,
I agree.
So the things that I'm trying to prove now is in terms of King David, Pontius Pilate, and all the areas, I'm trying to prove, this is one of your first points, historical evidence.
Yeah, but that's like saying, they say the best way to lie is to mix some truth into it.
Okay, but
no, but I'm gonna.
I hear what you're saying.
What you're saying is that the Bible, as a huge collection of different authors and books, is historically valid because some of its history is true. I'm saying that's not a strong enough point.
Not some of its history is true, but a lot of it is rooted. Okay, let's even go to Genesis. Yeah, bro. In the beginning, this didn't start once upon a time. Like, how else? Like, and
what's the difference between once upon a time and in the beginning,
but
bro?
Deep it though. We as humans did not even know that we had a beginning until recently.
Of course we did.
We didn't.
Of course we did.
We didn't.
Of course we did.
They believed that there was. Look at what science. They believed that the world was eternal. They didn't believe that there was a beginning. And not only that, yeah. The Bible talks about time, space, and matter. Those three things is what science believes that is needed for any for creation, right?
But
so
what's the point that you're
so my
making?
point
Because
is,
I'm
in
getting
the
lost.
beginning, God created heaven and earth. So that's in beginning. So you've got time, yeah. In the beginning, space now, yeah. Heavens and earth. So in the beginning, time, God created the heavens and earth. That's space. And then matter. He saw that the earth was formless and without void, and he said, "Let there be light." Blah blah blah. So you've got all of these, the postulates of science, all of these things: time, space, and matter. All these things within the first couple sentences of the Bible. That cannot be coincidental. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Because a human wrote it at a time where they have knowledge.
No, but
it's not like people weren't stupid.
They didn't have. But if I would go through so many facts that the Bible had before science caught up. So many. Like there's actually loads that you would even.
But that's like saying the same way that people still today can't figure out how the Egyptians built pyramids. That's not a Bible specific thing. That's just science hasn't been able to figure out a lot of stuff that we could do back then. We were smart at certain things back then.
No, of course. But
so the fact that Egyptians could build pyramids that can't be built today means that whoever wrote the Bible, they had internet. They weren't stupid.
Where did it come from? Because like you said, these people were fishermen and tax collectors and this. And remember,
that's just the followers of Jesus I'm talking about. There's obviously bigger people at the time in those times.
So from your logic, it was the smartest people at that time that wrote the Bible. Because it
had to have been people way smarter than the followers. I'm so happy that you said that. That's what makes me say that the followers themselves didn't write it, because they were poor fishermen, not educated. But the Bible is a very educated document, just like the Council of Nicaea.
And that's another reason why I think educated. That's another reason I believe that it was written by man, inspired by.
So now you're saying they didn't write it. It was.
No. Like, we've gone through this in the sense of when I say something was inspired by the Holy Spirit, that does not mean that you're just there and God's controlling your body like some vecna.
But you're saying it's not your knowledge that you're accessing to write this. So that is kind of what's happening.
No. But when I mean the Holy Spirit in the sense of, for example, how I consider the Holy Spirit in the sense of like, when you're filled with the Spirit, that does not mean that you're not you anymore. You're still you, but the way you will do things is different in the sense of like, you might do it more eloquently. You might have information that you did not know before.
Yeah, so it gives you so you're now accessing somebody else's knowledge for a short amount of time to be able to write in Greek and speak educated. Right, so that is somebody writing through you. That is literally somebody, because it's no longer you now.
Of course it is, because from the way you're trying to say it was like mind control. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm saying that if something that's not already in your mind enters your mind, it's now no longer you. It's now a different version of you. It's an enchanted version of you. You're different.
God is allowing the Holy Spirit to give you information.
And you're saying that's how these fishermen were able to write all this education.
This is, I don't believe, like you said, the only conclusion looking at the Bible would be that whoever wrote the Bible has to have been highly educated.
I agree with you there.
That's number one. So that's common base. So highly educated, yeah. They must have had access to knowledge that was not common at the time. They had to.
I agree with you.
So just by those two things alone, you can deduce, that whoever wrote the Bible was either incredibly smart, for that time period, or they had access to knowledge that they were not meant to have.
And who has those things?
Who?
People close to power, because power was in control. I'm the king.
Of course not.
I go and hire the smartest scribes. It still happens today. If you run Donald Trump, I'm gonna go with the most smartest friggin' Chinese engineers I can find, and we're gonna build missiles and military.
Okay.
The same thing still happening.
Let's go with your point, and let's say that was the case, You would have to have, from time someone died or whatever, this would have to be like a whole organization.
Of course
involved in this.
Of course it is.
No, but I mean the whole organization, for example, in the sense of from time the first book was written to the last book, you would need to have, and because it was taken over 1,500 years, I'm gonna then you're now in control of what's gonna be written in the Bible. It would have to be a whole organization. There would have to have been people collaborating with each other.
bro.
I
agree. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying that's
so if
bait,
but that's not what happened to write
that
the
is
Bible.
what happened.
It isn't.
Deep it. The fact that we can even have something called the King James
over 1,500
Bible.
years, bro.
No, but what I'm trying to show to you with that example is that whoever's been in power has been in control of what happens to the Bible. King James is just one example of that. But every king from that point all the way back to Jesus' time, all the way to the Romans, they all had control of what's going on with the Bible. Okay, we're going to print this many. Okay, we're going to put it in this many languages. Okay, we're going to make it English now. Whoever was in power controlled what's going on with the Bible throughout the whole history of the Bible.
That's not true though.
It is true.
And do you know why I say
why
that's
do we
not
have
true?
the King James Bible?
Do you know, but forget the King James Bible for now, but do you know how I would say that's not true though? Because there was efforts to destroy these books. Loads of efforts to destroy these books. So that does not mean that whoever's in power at the time, oh, you can't touch the Bible. There was so much effort to destroy all this history. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So that does not, so by you saying, oh, just because the person's in power means that they run things and blah, blah, blah. I'm not disputing with you on that in the sense, okay, yeah, they have influence. Of course, but that does not mean that they control what was going on. So for somebody to have written the Bible how it is based on today without, like you said, being some level of intelligence or without this information, there would needed to be a global cohesion within that time span, 1,500, 2,000 years, however long it took to written.
But this
you
is
would
why,
have had to put that, and it couldn't.
This is why Christianity and Islam are so big, because at the times when they ran the world, their religions got pushed. Who ran the world in the times of Jesus? The Romans. They actually literally had a global
but the Romans,
control.
No, but
so if they're Christian, guess what? The world's Christian.
No, but the Romans weren't Christian in the sense of like maybe towards the end, but
no, in the beginning.
But
the first 100 years before our earliest transcript, the Romans had already become Christian. That's factual. So the fact that Romans,
I'm not familiar with that, so I can't dispute with that.
But the fact that the Romans had already converted to Christianity, which was Roman Catholicism. Catholic is just short for Roman Catholicism, which is the earliest Christianity, way before we even had Protestant, right? At least 1,200 years before we had Protestant. The Romans controlled the world, right? There is no America, there is no South America at this time. That part of the world isn't known. But they're not known. They're not known. You see what I'm saying? Like we haven't discovered that part until like the 1400s, right? So all the world knows is Africa, Europe, and Asia. And at that time, Romans are in control of all of it. So if they're Christian, guess what? Everybody's Christian. And then what happened 600 years later?
That wasn't the case though.
It was the case. Of course it was the case.
Because from the beginning of time, and let's look at the Bible as a history book here. From the beginning of time, bro, not only did you have Adam, not only did you have Noah and all of these things, yeah, bro, there's always been other gods. That's why it's one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not worship any other god. Thou shalt not bow down to any other god. Like, it's always been the case. God has always been trying to get his name and his status shown amongst the earth. That was the whole point of the Israelites. So he has his chosen people.
I'm trying to show you with my point why that actually did become the case. Because before the New Testament, all of those stories are based in a very small part of the world. Adam, all of this, David, all of that is just Israel. And like Egypt a bit, all of that whole Old Testament takes place in that tiny part of the world. No, but Christianity only gets big because it also, Romans come into it. That's how it spreads, bro. And then why does the same thing? Islam and Christianity are the two biggest religions in the world. Why? Because at those two times in history, they had control. The Islamic Caliphate in the year 650, they took over the Romans, they took over bare people. They ran the world at that time. So guess what? Everyone's Islam now. So that's why it deals with the two biggest religions, because the two biggest powers at those times in history had those beliefs and spread it. That's the only reason why.
No, but I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disputing what you're saying. Definitely. And another reason why I'm not disputing what you're saying, because at the end of the day, if I do believe that the Bible is real and God is real, written in the Bible, who used people.
He used the Romans as a vector. Yeah, and I hear that. That's a fair point.
Because even in the Bible, there's times that when the Israelites worship other gods. And for example, familiar with the story of, this is before they even reached the promised land, when Moses went to reach 10 commandments, they came down, Aaron built a calf and they were all worshipping the calf. Yeah. What did God do, bro? He caused the plague to be in it. This is his own people. He killed his own people. Why? Because they turned away from him and the worship of God. Yeah. So I'm not disputing what you're saying, because if that's the case and they were the most power, I could see the God using Romans to push his narrative, which is the word. Do you get what I mean? So going back to it, we have to so the first answer is, does the Bible have historical validity? That does not mean that what it says, we're not talking about the context, we're not talking about where it is. So in terms of, can we answer yes or no to that?
Does it have historical validity?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so that's the first postulate already. That covers mine, that covers yours in terms of...
No, it doesn't cover mine. No. It doesn't cover mine, because that's not what we're saying.
No, remember, your thing was, the witnesses, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, there has to be historical evidence, it has to be credible. So right now, historical validity, that's one thing. We haven't even gone on to the credibility part yet.
No, but that's not a valid thing for my test, because because it's got some historical truth doesn't mean that as a source it's reliable.
Historically reliable.
If I write a storybook,
remember, we're not talking about the credibility here. We're talking about if it's historically reliable. So I
don't think it is.
But you just said yes.
You said, does it have some historical validity? Yes. But does that make it historically reliable? No.
Why not? Though?
Because there's elements of history. That's what I'm saying. If I write a storybook here or a fiction, but in that fiction it's based in London, then guess what? Yeah, London is real, but if there's dragons in the story, it's not reliable.
A lot of these places, the reason why this is so important is because at the time the Bible was written, they didn't believe, these places weren't discovered.
Which places weren't discovered?
For example, something like King David or a Pontius Pilate, These are things that they found after. At the time, people were saying the Bible can't be real because these two people are not being recorded.
No, I don't agree with that.
No, check it. These are only things that got found recently. Both King David and both Pontius Pilate, Even something like Jericho, the pool of Bethesda, do you know what I mean? The wall of Jericho. Things like this is what the Bible said, but at the time, because they weren't discovered, when people were reading it, they said, no, this is not historically reliable because we don't know these places existed. So what I'm basically trying to say is in the sense of the fact that it's got names, it's got of places, of countries, things like the Red Sea, it's got areas that were there around the time and things like that, far and wide. The fact that it has got that alone, you can say that it is historically reliable.
No, but obviously though, because whoever writes it, whatever humans are writing, are living somewhere. Yeah, no matter what time in history, they're living somewhere. And there's going to be areas. And there's going to be names of areas. So whoever's writing it, whether it's divine or not, my point is, whether it's divine or not, whoever is writing a story is going to have real places that
remember, we're not talking about divinity right now. We're just talking... take all the divine and the miracles out of the Bible. The question is does the Bible have historical things inside it? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, but that's not the key question we were debating here, though.
No, but remember, we got answer...
Because you're saying, has it got some historical... Yes, of course it does. Exactly. But is it historically accurate? No.
So what's not historically accurate?
Everything south of Solomon, as in everything before Solomon, has so much stuff that isn't historically true.
Like what?
Like floods, like anything supernatural.
For the flood to even anything supernatural is what
anything supernatural.
But it literally says the first in the
Samson
beginning.
having superhuman strength. Like none of this is real.
From you don't believe it is, but we're talking about historically.
Yeah, so how can you pick and choose? How can you pick and choose bits and say, okay, this is historically?
It's not a pick and choose things, but what I'm trying to say in the sense of just because you've not found, like, if there was somebody that came today and that this person had a superhuman strength, you would not then debate Samson because
can you prove Samson?
Hold on, because you've seen this possible. So it's not about proving Samson. It's about saying that I'm not trying to say that is the whole Bible historically accurate. I'm trying to say that does the Bible have elements in the Bible that are historically accurate?
Yeah, we both would agree to that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not debating that though.
No, but the whole point is the Bible. The validity of the Bible. So to answer if the Bible is the validity of the Bible, we have to go and look at things. And remember, this is your test. Remember, so witnesses, beyond a reasonable doubt, historical evidence, and the credibility. So for one of the things you said is historical evidence, and we can both agree that the Bible has some things in it which are historically accurate.
But it has some stuff that's historically wild. So that cancels out.
But but the stuff that you're talking about, like I said, just because it's not being discovered does not mean it's not real.
But it also doesn't mean it's real either.
I'm not debating that, but I'm trying to say
you've got to prove to the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that all of this stuff is true.
No, that's not what I said. The validity for you to.
But that's what makes it valid.
I cannot. There's stuff in the Bible that, for example, I can't prove that a man came back to dead. I can't prove that. I could use, but what I can do is show you that there's a person that named Jesus that allegedly came back from the dead. How can I prove that what he's saying was? How can I corroborate that? What I have to corroborate that is the fact that they've mentioned crucifixions in the past. The fact that you've got like the towel of Sharon towel or something like that. The fact that where he was meant to be crucified was a real place. The fact that there was eyewitnesses. All of this. That still does not mean that Jesus came back from the dead. All it means is that there's evidence to support the claims that it's making. You're never going to be able to look at. Remember, this is something that's written over 1,500 years. There's no. If anyone can say I can prove everything that's written in the Bible, you're allowed. There's a lot of things that you can't prove anyway. Okay. The court don't have, and that's why it's called beyond a reasonable doubt. The court, and that's. Have you ever heard of conspiracy? Like people do for conspiracy to M. That's when they'll do for conspiracy to M, meaning that they think you've done it. They might not have all the proof that you did it, but they're going to do you for conspiracy because they've still got some evidence. So in this case, it's not about proving is the whole Bible, is everything in the Bible reliable, is everything in the Bible historically accurate, because there's some stuff that we just generally cannot prove.
Yeah,
like you said,
I agree with you.
Like the flood, we can't generally prove the flood. We can make allusions to it and draw inferences from all the amount of stories that were there and the fact that there's things that have been found that are meant to be in deep water that they're found on mountains. Again, it's an inference. That does not mean that it proves it happened, but you can draw a conclusion for these things. So that's why my answer is, from the things that I've mentioned already, we can prove that, yeah, the Bible has historical accuracy. That's not to say that everything in the Bible is completely true, but there is historical accuracy in the Bible.
So, okay, I think I understand what you're saying now. So if we think about the trial example, basically what you're saying is the Bible's on the stand, you're coming forward and you're saying, okay, here's my evidence. My first little bit of collection of evidence is that there are places in the Bible that were real. That's basically what you're saying. That's your evidence.
There are places in the Bible that are real. There are names in the Bible that are real. And what is more important about it is some of these places where they were saying, oh, it's not real, it didn't actually happen, these people never existed. They found that these people did exist and these people were real. For example, King David and Pontius Pilate. Two people that people didn't know they were real. There's proof to them that they are real. The Bible said they were real before they were real. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Right,
so that's all I mean by historical accuracy. So cool. So I think from what you've said and what we've gone through, number one, we could agree that the Bible has some historical accuracy.
Yeah,
that's not saying the whole thing is.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool.
And I understand that as submitted evidence from your side. Does that make sense? Okay,
and then, cool.
But that's not. I don't submit evidence from my side though.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
but I understand you submitting that as evidence on your side.
Okay, cool, definitely. So that's number one. So we could say that the Bible has some historical accuracy, even if we're looking at people who did not believe. And this is the last point I have about historical validity. Yeah. So even a lot of people that didn't believe. So Josephus, Tacitus as well. Tacitus confirmed that Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate. Josephus mentions Jesus. He mentions John the Baptist and he mentions James. Yeah. These were people that weren't Christians. Yeah. So that again supports the what is written in the Bible can be traced back to history. Some of the stuff, not everything, but some of the stuff. Okay, cool. So that's number one. So I feel like on that point alone, it's passed. It might not have passed the flying colours because it's not everything like you said. But again, I'm submitting evidence to show that it's historically accurate.
I understand what you're saying. It's fair evidence.
Cool. In terms of eyewitnesses and early testimony, and this is what we're speaking about, but I feel we've gone past this point as well. But most scholars date the gospel between AD 45 and AD 95. So this is within eyewitness lifetime.
It's not. Jesus died at 33.
So
that means Jesus died at 33.
Jesus died at 33. But I'm talking about the people that saw him. They did not die at 33.
Okay.
They could have lived to 90, whatever, So this is why I'm saying that was written within the people's eyewitnesses' lifetime, right? Cool. So the names, the locations, the specific time, even the rulers as well. You got the Book of Kings, which goes past some of the rulers there. Even what's his name? Ramses the Great. He was meant to, I think it was Ramses the Great or Ramses something. He was meant to be the Exodus Bible, the Exodus Pharaoh. Sorry, did you get it? Ramses the Great was meant to be the Exodus Pharaoh. Yeah, he's somebody who actually is real. He's somebody who actually existed. There are stories around that time of mass migration. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
There's not. There's no historical record of mass migration from Egypt to Jerusalem. To Jerusalem.
Not in terms of where it went, but there's stories within the 19th dynasty of there being people leaving Egypt on a mass scale. You can look it up.
But there's no like archaeological evidence.
I agree with you, and the reason why there would not be any archaeological evidence, in my opinion, is because, bro, we know history. Like, for example, if you look at the Bible, there's a lot of things, the irrelevant information that you wouldn't even put in there if you wanted to paint a certain narrative. Yeah. For example, why would you even say that Jesus died? Do you not think that causes more problems than it would not?
Not if you say he resurrects. That solves that straight away.
To somebody who's a believer, but that causes more problems because now you're thinking, who else is resurrected from the dead? This is why another reason why I believe Muslims, because Muslims cannot deny that Jesus is real. The only thing that they can deny that he was not crucified, because if they say that he was crucified, then his claims are true. But so what they say is that Jesus wasn't crucified, that Allah replaced him with somebody that looked like him, and he was crucified on his behalf. That's what Muslims say. Do you see what I'm saying to you? They can't say the otherwise because that will prove that Jesus did resurrect. You get what I'm trying to say to you? So my whole point is that, in the sense of like, when it comes down to the information, so eyewitness testimonies, early testimonies, yeah. If we can go back to the Corinthians where it says that Paul listed so the eyewitnesses and blah 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 and all of these things, yeah. That in itself can be seen as evidence. It says it takes more than one person to corroborate something. If me and you saw something today, 100 years have passed, yeah, and we've both given evidence. That's like somebody saying 100 years time, oh, that's not true. How can we prove that was true?
But that's very, very weak evidence.
It's not weak evidence.
You know, the locations and the people being historically real people, I'll actually give you that. That is good evidence still. But this isn't good evidence, and I'll tell you why. Because it's like, again, if we compare it to the trial situation, yeah, and we remove the Bible from the stand and we put the person we're accusing, the stories that the person we're accusing, that they say themselves they can't be looked at as credible.
I agree with you.
Because if we're putting a murderer on trial, a suspected murderer on trial, and he says, I didn't murder anyone, that doesn't really prove anything. So if we're putting the Bible on trial and then we're using stories from the Bible to say there's witnesses, that's like the murderer saying, I didn't murder anyone. You're on trial.
I agree with you. So you have to use things that are outside the Bible.
Yeah.
Agreed. Hence the reason why I spoke about Josephus before and Tacitus. And the reason why is because Tacitus confirms the fact that
people were real.
I don't dispute that. Pontius Pilate is real, and Josephus speaks about Jesus and John the Baptist and whatnot, and they clearly didn't agree that he was divine, but even people around that time were able to, and these are outside the Bible, would say there was something special about Jesus, whether he was the Son of God or not. Whether he died and came back together or not, you can say that was to be debated. But all the stories around that time say that there was something special about Jesus.
No, they don't.
They do.
Anything I've seen that are non-Christian based from that time, they just say, there was a heretic or the leader of the Jews. That's what they call it, because obviously at the time they were Jews. They weren't Christians.
Yeah, but it was, even in the terms of the miracles, bro, even Muslims do not disagree.
Yeah, but you can't use Muslims because remember, Muslims it comes from the same. It comes from the same Abrahamic structure. So you've got Judaism that's there first. You've got to remember, because without Judaism, there's no Christianity either. Would you agree to that? Without Judaism, there's no Christianity.
And this is why, remember the whole Christianity point in the sense of, okay, cool. Let me just a bit quick paraphrase. You know, what's his name? I believe it was Abraham. Before Abraham, God didn't reveal himself to any of the prophets before Abraham, other than Adam, who he walked with. They didn't know who God was. Abraham was the first person that God actually told him his name. I am who I am. Yeah. So prior to this, they did not know who God was. So God was revealing himself in stages, slowly type thing, innit? So if that's the case, what I believe anyway is the fact that God's always been there, His word's always been around. Yeah, I don't believe Muslims. They may say they came from the same branch, but they didn't. The only one that I can agree with is Judaism, because, like I said, we were Jews before.
Yeah.
Islam's not mentioned. Even the way they worship God is completely different. The only thing that they hold on to is Abraham, because they have to hold on to that, because they can't not just say that they came out of nowhere. Because that wouldn't make sense.
They have all of the same Old Testament prophets and people.
They don't, bro.
They're just anglicized in different names. Just like the way that Jesus' name isn't really Jesus, it's like Yeshua. But they just say in Islam sort of dialect.
It's the story.
Like they'll say Sarah instead of Sarah instead of Sarah. It's the same person.
But Islam don't even. It's the core. Islam don't even believe in the fact of original sin.
But different Christian denominations you could say the same thing about. They don't believe in fundamental stuff from your perspective, so that doesn't mean anything.
But then remember, then you can't. This is what I'm beginning to actually hate the term Christianity. In the actual term as the bracket, because like, remember we were chatting the other day and we were talking about like the 7-day Adventists and all. Bro, just because you call yourself a Christian does not mean you are. Before they used to refer to themselves as the people of the way, I believe. So if we take Christianity away from everything, yeah, that's just a name for a name for something, right?
It means if Christ is central to your belief, which it is with with Catholic, all of them, Christ is central.
But if my whole point is what I'm trying to say is, even if Jesus never came down, on earth and died for our sins and everything, blah blah blah, we might not have salvation we have today, but we would still have God. God would still be there. Jesus would have still been about.
And that's what links you guys in Islam, because they would say the same thing, because they still had Abraham. But
there's you say that they still had Abraham and all of this, but in a sense, but my whole thing in the sense of like, bro, would show me where in the Old Testament it talks about praying 5 times a day.
No, but what you got to remember is that Islam is the newest one.
Exactly.
And just like New Testament was newer than the Old Testament, the New Testament can reference the Old Testament.
But exactly,
because it was after.
Because it was but it's, you know, at uni when you have to do references and whatnot. The Old Testament and New Testament are linked. Whether they're written how
they're
many
linked.
years
They're
ago,
linked to Christians. Jewish people don't consider them linked. Jewish people say, "Why are you attaching that book to this book?"
They say that because they don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. They crucified him.
And you don't believe that Muhammad was the next prophet. It's the exact same chain of events.
No, but we didn't come from the same thing, though.
But you have those. What I'm trying to say. Both. If there's no Judaism, there's no Christianity and Islam. That's factual.
There is.
How?
Because remember, Judaism as well is just another religion. All of these are religions. I'm talking about God. That's like basically saying.
I'm talking about the story. These are just titles. I agree with you.
Yeah,
just
that's
religious
what I'm
titles.
saying,
But I'm talking about so forget the titles. I'm talking about the story. Without Abraham, there's no Joseph. Without Joseph, there's no Israel. Without Israel, there's no Jacob. Without Jacob, there's no. And the same thing. If you now break off the branch into Christianity, without all of these people, there's no Joseph and there's no Jesus. And without all of these people, there's no Muhammad.
There is though, because if you're a true Christian, you know and you understand that Jesus existed before the Old Testament, before the New Testament. It calls him, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was of God, and the Word was God. So you would believe that Jesus, regardless of how the world went, Jesus would always be about. You cannot say the same for Muhammad. You cannot say the same for even Judaism as it is. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Because Judaism doesn't claim to have something that was about before the book came.
It claims to have God himself about before the book. Remember, in the beginning, that comes from Judaism. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, of course. But what I mean in the sense of like, for example, because Judaism believes that it all stopped there, right? They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe
they don't believe that Jesus was.
So if that's the case, and Judaism believed that it all stopped there, and that was their last revelation. They're still waiting to hear from God from now, whatever. That means and goes to show, without their book, there would be nothing for them to. There would be no religion. There would not be no Judaism without their book. If this was not written down in their book, there wouldn't be nothing.
But then there wouldn't be no Christianity or Islam either.
No, but there would be though.
How could there be? You wouldn't even know about Abraham or know about Joseph or know about Adam or none of that.
Forget the stories now. I'm talking about, because the Bible now talks about from the beginning.
Which is the Judaism part.
No, but the stories are different.
It's not different.
They are different.
If they, bro,
I promise you.
bro, the Torah has the first 5 books of Moses. Yeah, which is Genesis, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all of that. If you're telling me that you remove that book, how can there then be Christianity? Because now you don't even have a beginning to your story.
But when I say different in the sense of, because I used to think that the Old Testament and the New Testament was like word for the Old Testament in the it's not word for word is what I'm basically saying.
What's not word for word?
Like what the Jews read in their Torah is not word for word from what we read in the Old Testament.
Yeah,
the stories are different.
And that's a great point. Another point with the powers in charge that change the Old Testament or change the Torah and make it the Old Testament by changing things. That's human intervention.
But it didn't change it.
Of course, bro. You just admitted yourself that the Torah is different from the Old Testament.
I'm saying the books are different.
What books are different? No, the books are the same.
They're not,
the books are the same.
Let's Google it right now, bro.
Cool.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm saying, or maybe it's the way that they interpret it, but
yeah,
it's not
I
same.
I agree to that. I agree that's different interpretation,
bro.
But it's still the same.
I was reading an article, watching a video actually, YouTube. Yeah. Long story short, the woman was. Jews do not believe in original sin. This is in the Bible. This is clear as day. You can't tell me you.
It's in the Bible where?
In the start, bro. In Genesis, original sin. From man fell, he cursed man. He said he cursed man, he cursed woman, and he even said, and this is another thing as well. Jesus was predicted in Genesis 15. I'm not too sure about this verse, if I'm honest with you. But Genesis 3:15. This is the first messianic promise, yeah, from Genesis 3:15. So. Okay, you know what? Before we go on to that, okay, so we've done the first one, historical validity. Would you say that there's eyewitness and would you agree and say that the eyewitness and early testimony does not prove the Bible?
I don't think there's any early witness and eye testimony.
Other than
I don't think there's any proof of that. Like,
so you don't think 500 people saying, or however many people there was, over 500 people said that they saw Jesus, yeah? Just the fact that it's so that's like me and say us. That's
500 people didn't say they saw Jesus. One person wrote a story that said 500 people saw it.
Okay, cool. At the time when it was released, some of the people are still alive, yeah, which is what it was.
If it's true,
it is true. So what I'm basically trying to say is that that's like something happening today. Every single person on this road seeing what happened, yeah. Everyone in the whole time, in the whole of Northwest or wherever we are, believe that cool, this is real. You've had 500 witnesses. This is real. Then 1,000 years time. Because it sounds too good to be true, someone's saying, what's the proof? How is the proof that 500 people saw it? Because that's what it sounds like. Remember, this is the court of law. So if you have documents saying...
No, but the thing that's on trial is the document you're trying to use. Again, that's like using the murderer as your proof. Of course the murderer is going to say whatever they need to say to bust case.
No, but what I'm trying to say in the sense of like, even people... Okay, if we want us to go outside the Bible, because this is just one verse, there's other people that... even who are not Christians, who are Jews, people who did not mess with Jesus and all these things like that, who were there to say that yes, I saw Jesus back alive, or there was a story around the time.
No, they were. Show me your source of a non-Christian person saying that they saw Jesus resurrect.
Okay.
There's no such thing. Any written document outside of Christians, they all say that he was just someone who led the Jews and died.
1 second. Talking about the resurrection, yeah. Christian person. 1 second. Non-Christian person at the time.
But I agree that Genesis 3:15 says that a Messiah will come, or someone will come to.
See, I'm not gonna lie. When I first read it, I didn't even understand that. I didn't understand that. So the what to say about non-Christians.
It says a future human descendant will ultimately defeat the serpent, even though he will be hurt in the process.
Okay, cool. It's fair enough then. See, so non-Christian. I'm just trying to think how to phrase it.
But I don't know why Jewish people don't think that Jesus is that prediction. I don't know why. You have to ask them.
But do you know what it is? I feel like the reason that they don't believe it's the case here is because they killed him.
Because they didn't
That's
believe.
why.
They didn't, but they had a reason to not believe that he. I don't know what the reason is, but they had such a strong reason to say that it's not.
No, but I feel like the reason they
say that he's
the
not.
reason at the time that they said that they had at the time anyway was just because it was almost arrogance. Like even when it comes, my whole belief personally, the reason why people don't believe in God is nothing to do with the validity of the Bible. It's to do with themselves. Generally, that's what I generally honestly believe. Because even if you didn't have the Bible, bro, all you have to do is look up at the stars and see the stars and see the sky, and just to know and understand that this
is mad.
Yeah,
I hear it. I hear it.
That's why it says in the Bible that there's not going to be, like, when people die, there won't be any excuse from being like, oh, I didn't know that God existed. Bro, he's written this on our hearts.
But great, yeah. Let's say you were born here and you lived in Iceland or something, and your whole life you never came across the Bible. Like, you'll end up putting together your own conclusion or your own thought of what's out there. So that's why I say the book itself is very important, because the book gives you your whole idea system. If you've never read the book ever in life, you'll end up coming up with your own explanation.
You would, but that would always lead back to there is some sort of higher power, right?
Yeah, and I don't dispute a higher power. I will never dispute higher power. But what I'm disputing is saying how valid is this specific story
power
of the Bible.
Fair enough. And let me. I'm not afraid to say I was wrong. I was wrong. What it said is that there's non-Christian sources from Jesus' time. They don't offer first-hand accounts of the resurrection, but they do confirm Jesus' existence, his execution by Pilate, and strong belief among his followers that he rose. So what I mean in the sense of
I can agree with all of that.
Okay, fair
I've
enough.
got no issue with any of that.
Fair enough.
I believe Jesus was a real person. I don't think the story gets this big if he wasn't a real person.
Of course.
But my thing is
the
validity.
So Josephus again mentioned Jesus as so-called Christ, and just brother James acknowledging the impact of Jesus and his followers including claims of his appearance after death according to some interpretations of his text. That's Josephus.
Yeah.
That's probably where I got it from, to be honest. Tacitus, Roman as well. So Josephus was a Jew. Tacitus was a Roman. He documented the execution of Christus by Pontius Pilate and spread of Christianity who believed he rose from the dead, showing awareness of Christians at the time. So again, this doesn't prove that they believed in it, but it proves it shows that what other people were believing at the time.
Yeah, I believe that
people
believed it at the time.
So when I'm saying eyewitnesses at the time, it's like I honestly feel like, bro, for somebody to die and come back to life is a huge claim.
So he is a huge claim.
A huge claim.
It's a huge claim.
So even at that time, I honestly generally believe that people, for it to spread, people would have to believe it. People have had to have either seen it.
People believe it today.
Exactly.
But that's not
and they've
what
not
we're
even
disputing.
seen it. So the fact that people believe it today, they've not seen it there. If you're telling me they had, however, okay, you know what? Before we can go on to that point, then, so we can move on to the next point, is 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8, yeah, where it talks about Paul speaking about some of these, mentioning some of these eyewitnesses, yeah. So I feel like that's the last point before we can move on, because I've still got 1, 2.
I've got some of my evidence as well I need to submit to
Oh
you,
yeah, go on. Sorry, bro.
No, let's just quickly do the, was it Timothy?
No, 1 Corinthians
1
15,
Corinthians.
3-8.
Alright.
Because I've gone through 2. We can go through 1, 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 more points, so we can go through some of your points and go through that. It might even relate to some of the things that I'm speaking about.
So obviously this is summarized, so just correct me like where there's more important understanding in it. But from this understanding of 1 Corinthians 3 and 8, Paul is saying that people who serve God in different ways are working toward the same goal. Their roles may be different, but God values the work fairly, and each person will be rewarded based on their own effort. Would you agree with that, or did it like miss some key insight?
Are you on Chronicles or Corinthians?
Corinthians 3 and 8.
No, 1 Corinthians 15.
Oh,
3 to 8. Yeah, can I say, bruh, that's not.
Oh, shame.
Yeah.
You know, but the first thing always. I'm always like, oh, it's the first chapter, but it's not. It's the first book of Corinthians.
Yeah, first book. Yeah. I was thinking, bruh, that's it. Thinking, am I wrong? Like, did I read that wrong?
Yeah, mad thing. So 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 3 to 8.
Yeah.
Got you.
My bad, still, yeah.
Paul is reminding them of the core Christian message. Jesus really died, was buried, rose from the dead, and was seen alive by many eyewitnesses. This wasn't a private belief or rumor. It was publicly witnessed and passed on as established teaching.
Yeah. So my whole thing, in the sense of course, we can never speak to the 500 eyewitnesses people there, but the fact that you had such a vast amount of people back in claiming to have seen him, and this was something again that was like, I feel like it could be very easily disputed if it was not true. The empty tomb, the fact that even if we want to go and speak about the crucifixion itself, bro, you know they didn't rape women back in the day. Why would they? And this is another thing that I say, if you really wanted to write the Bible in an agenda, you would have written it in a different way. Why would you say that women saw them? Empty tomb. Why would you say that women saw the angel and all of these things? You would not say that. If you really want to strengthen your claim, you would say it was a man. You wouldn't even say the tomb was empty. Like, generally. Do you know what I mean?
It's a good point.
And that's the reason why I believe that these eyewitness testimonies, fair enough, they can't be questioned today. So I do understand your point of view in the sense of, okay, anyone could have said it. But I do believe the fact that we had that many people anyway goes to show that people had the belief that it was true.
No, but my point isn't. My point is that we don't even have the 500. All we have is one person saying that there were 500.
Of course.
So all we have is one person.
But then it's like, bro, if let's be real, so somebody said your name in something and you were there. Remember, and this is another reason why a great point where he made and said that some of the people are still alive till this day. Imagine you saying that and you reading that, bro, I'm gonna go check and speak to that person. Be like, yo, did this happen, bro? Did this really happen?
But you have this. Okay, so today,
you know what I mean?
If today, yeah, obviously you got the Ukraine wars, you got the Israel wars. Mm-hmm. If one person says they saw 300 people get like bombed by a missile, all we'd have to go on is what that one person has said. We don't have those 300 people to check.
I agree.
See what I'm saying?
But if one person said that they saw 300 people get bombed by a missile, and there was other eyewitnesses who was there that can corroborate his story.
Who's the other eyewitnesses? Who else apart from Paul said?
The 12 disciples. We can even go to the verse and really see who exactly was the people he saw, because he wrote this down.
No, but eyewitnesses would be somebody other than Paul agreeing with the fact that 500 people say it. So that would be an eyewitness to Paul. So is there anywhere else in the Bible where somebody says they also know about this 500 people?
Yeah, well, if you want to look at all the disciples claim that they saw Jesus resurrected. All of them.
But none of them apart from Paul spoke about these 500 people.
Let me check. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that I do think that it was just Paul. Who else?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying with the eyewitnesses. Okay. He doesn't have any eyewitnesses to his claim. It's just him saying it. Which to me, it's obviously to a lot of people that won't lower the validity, but to me that lowers the validity because we're putting so much on just one person is writing. So one of the evidence that I want to put forward to the jury, obviously, is okay. So if Christianity came from one clear divine truth, it's just Jesus at the time, eyewitnesses, everybody, the followers are there, yeah. If that's true, yeah, then why was there radically different beliefs from the start? Like, how did that even happen? How did it split so quickly into different denominations?
Oh, you're speaking about Christianity?
Yeah, I'm speaking about just the followers of Christ at the time.
The only answer that I can give to that is because of humans, and we try to do what we can to comfort ourselves. For example, in the sense of, I was watching a video the other day, there was one girl who was an OnlyFans model. She's like, oh, I love Jesus, I love God, this, that, I have such a good relationship. Sorry. See, you're already laughing.
Oh, I didn't want to do it, man.
You're already laughing.
Oh, sorry, that's funny.
But did you get it though? Yeah. She's like, yeah, I love God, and the guy was like, on so he's like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, you came to love this person, but you're completely going contrary to what he's saying. So the reason I'm bringing that up is people love to change things for their own convenience.
I agree.
Look at King Henry. Mama made divorce legal just so
you could divorce his eight wives and that.
Even somebody like Moses, there was a chapter that I read speaking about Moses and basically saying that divorce was never meant to be a thing. The only reason divorce was made a thing is because at a time, where did I put this? It was where was it? Okay, I can't get. I don't want to spend too much time looking for this exact verse. Yeah. Oh no, I wrote it. Yeah, that's why I wrote it down.